Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Sisterhood Society podcast. We are just doing a cute and fun little episode this week. We thought it would be fun to interview the kids and see if we could come up with any of the kids say the darndest things. And we got some funny answers. So that's just a short little 10-minute clip or so after this. We've been doing really, really long episodes lately. So we thought we would spare you guys from like an hour and a half episode from the past couple of weeks. So this one's just fun and short and sweet. And anyways, but before we get into that, we're going to go into what's good and do like a quick life catch up. So Whitney, would you like to go first?
Sure. So Isaac and I were able to lead worship yesterday at church, and the set list, I had to sing 3 of the 4 songs. Normally I only sing maybe one, if that, and my voice wasn't used to it, so I was like really terrified I wasn't going to be able to make it through it all, and I made it through just fine. So
Okay.
2 services and I still had a voice, so that's great. And it was really fun to be able to get to do that with him. And
What was the set list?
so King of My Heart.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, let me pull it up. King of My Heart, Whole Heart by Hillsong. And then there was a new one by Vertical Church called Spirit of the Living God, that we sang. So do you guys like know Meredith Andrews
Yes, I
in
do.
like the worship world? She has a very high voice and she sings Spirit of the Living God. And we didn't change or transpose it to a lower key. So I had to sing it in her key, and I can't belt the high notes like she can. And I was like, oh crap, I can barely sing this falsetto. So I did my best. Not saying it sounded the greatest, but I got
I would
through.
have a hard time with a lot of like girl songs because I feel like I definitely can't hit the high note. I mean, you can sing a lot higher than even I can. So if you had trouble with it, I definitely wouldn't have been able to.
I mean, so here's my beef with female worship singers. You have fabulous voices. But you're trying to sing to the masses, and the masses are trying to sing along with you, and we can't.
Right.
So maybe keep that in mind for when you're wanting to belt really high notes. Coming from a gal that is jealous that I can't hit the high notes, it's essentially what it's stemming from.
I don't blame you though. It would be really difficult to do that. And I feel like you said, it's not like the church congregation is going to like try to blast out this really like high note, you know?
Yeah, they're like, it sounds like we're all screaming at once.
They're all trying to do whistle tones, like Mariah carrying it out in the congregation.
Right? Could you imagine? It's
Well,
funny.
and it's funny too because the church I go to is all about like letting the spirit move. So people are like, a lot of the time people are just in their row, but some people are like out of their row and jumping and singing and like, a lot. Some of those people sing incredibly loud, like astonishingly loud, which there's no judgment, but not all of them can like sing, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I would say majority of people I feel like at church are probably not there to have a singing career. So
Yeah. Well, that's
world
good
just
because I'm not either.
true.
So I can lead the people that don't really want a singing career.
True. I'm having a hair crisis. I feel like I should have washed my hair today, but I just didn't have time. So I keep trying to clip it back so it's out of my hair, but then I feel like I look a little bit like a cone head. So I'm having an issue right now. Okay. Tara, what's your good?
I was trying to think back what we did this weekend. I cannot for the life of me remember what we did Friday night. It must not have been anything.
You
Um,
worked. Didn't you
oh,
just
well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Whit and I did a live. That's what it was. I forgot. I was like, what did we do? I knew Thursday. So Thursday I helped out Abby and Rachel with an event that they had at the Paradise Hotel and Casino. And do you guys know, oh, shoot, what's the guy's name? He's a chef and his name is, I think it's like Fabio Vivani. Does that sound right?
I don't
Um,
know this chef.
anyway, apparently he is
Is he local or it's like someone that we would know?
Fabio, yeah, Fabio Vivani. Um, No, he's been on like Top Chef and some of those different ones. I guess he has a place in Chicago, but
Huh.
he's been on like some of the top shows or whatever. So it was a charity event for a company called Epic, which they help essentially like people that are that have like learning disabilities, things like that. They help them get placement for jobs.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
but yeah, during the event they had this chef like do these cooking demonstrations.
Mhm.
And so he was there and he was super fun. But apparently he has a place in Chicago and then he travels like 300 days a year. So it's insane. But they were trying to raise money for obviously the for Epic, and they did a live auction where you could stay over in Chicago overnight at a hotel, and then you got to go. He has apparently a couple different, like a dessert place and all these things. And he kept raising the bar to get people to like bid on it. So he turned it into a 2 night stay and then breakfast, lunch, and dinner at his like restaurants. And then he invited them to his home for this supper club that only like 75 people are a part of. And I guess it's like one of the most coveted supper clubs in America. I've never even heard of supper club, didn't know
Did you
existed.
bid?
Yes, I decided to put down 8,000 on it. That was the word of it.
I was
How's
gonna say,
it? How's it?
did you buy a boat to feel the wind down your arms?
My arms.
In your arms.
But he ended up splitting it amongst two people because both like people bid 8 grand, and so he gave it to two. And so anyway, it was a very cool event. But I was just like, I've never heard of a supper club, nor have I heard of like spending 8 grand. But it sounded like a really cool experience. He said they have like a wine, what do you call it? A wine room, and then they have like bourbon and gin and all this stuff. It's like $100 bottles and crazy stuff like that. So anyway, I was like, whoever got it is going to have an like once in a lifetime experience. But
yeah.
but the
I mean, but
food was fabulous.
who's like just got like $8,000 just laying
Apparently
around?
some high rollers in Peoria.
Yeah. Goodness.
So,
I need their numbers.
yeah. But they did
That fun?
the food, what I was going to say is the food was fantastic because he inspired the meal. And you know
Mm.
how when you go to like a normal event, like at a what's it called? A hotel or something like that. Usually like when it's catered, it's like rubbery chicken. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like the food's just like always okay. But
Mhm.
this was like pork shank that was literally like this tall and it was like that big around. It was absolutely massive.
Small and this bigger.
I was going to
"Oh,
say,
I hold it like
Kira's
this."
going to go into food descriptions and put us all into like a hunger coma.
But then they did a corn chowder as like the starter. That was like blended and it had Parmesan on top and then a little bit of olive oil. It was phenomenal. And then they did a what's the thing that's like mozzarella that is like a
Burrata?
ball? Burrata. They had burrata on like a
What's the thing like mozzarella?
they had that. And then they had something else. Oh, the pork shank was on polenta, but it tasted like a really good mashed potato. And then for dessert, they did from his restaurant, he has a dessert place called Jars. And it was basically like trifles, but they had like a pistachio one, a red velvet one. They had a like a hazelnut one, all fantastic. So good.
Wow.
And I was like, I've never been to an event like food like that where the food was actually like deep, like good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times it's just okay. So,
Right.
so yeah,
That's pretty cool.
it was fun.
That was Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice. Well, I don't have a lot of good to share today, but I'm going to try to find a silver lining. Most of you guys probably already know because you saw on social media of some sort. But I got a really disheartening call on Thursday night about our IVF journey. And honestly, kind of like I remember Phil was like, that's the last thing I thought you were going to tell me. And we had 22 eggs that ended up being 16 fertilized. And from the 16, we had 7 embryos that were then going to genetic testing. And we were going to go through a chromosome testing, which is called aneuploidy testing. And then it was going to go to the Pompe disease testing that we had to get done because Phil and I randomly carried the same genetic disorder in our blood. Where do you carry genetic
DNA, I think.
In your DNA? I was like, is it in your blood? Suddenly I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say. So it had been 5 weeks, I think, since my egg retrieval, right? Yeah.
That sounds about right because we've been home from Nashville for 2.
Yeah. And you came here after 1.5 ish.
Mhm.
So it's been about 5 weeks. I think it was February 10th. Yeah, it is because I was trying to track my cycle because I'm hoping if my cycle starts in the next 2 days, they'll let me just start over. But basically, all 7 embryos had chromosomal abnormalities, which a lot of nurses have messaged me, or IVF like endocrinologists and people have messaged me on Instagram and just said, like, just to encourage you, just because you had aneuploidy issues with your first set of embryos doesn't mean if you did egg retrieval again that it would happen again. Like a lot of the time, it's just like a fluke thing. So I got that news on Thursday night, and I think I texted you guys while I was still on the phone with the nurse and was just
Yeah.
like, this is kind of unbelievable. I can't believe this is happening. Um, and I was trying not to cry when I was talking to the nurse because I was like, if I start crying, I won't be able to like talk. So I need to like figure out what she's saying and then go from there. But I FaceTimed Phil, and Phil has only cried in front of me like 2 or 3 times. One, when I said goodbye to Grandma Tilly on the phone, because I was crying so hard that he cried, like listening to us saying goodbye. When he got the Kelsey gig, but that was kind of like tears of joy, but at least it was crying. And then our wedding. So, like, those are three like massive monumental, like, Phil just doesn't cry. He's an emotional person, but he doesn't like shed tears. And I told him I was crying as he was answering the FaceTime. He was in Jersey for tour. And he was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And so I told him, and he was like, I'm like in shock. That's literally like the last thing I thought you were gonna say. Um, so anyways, Thursday and Friday, I just like felt, I don't know how else to describe it, but I felt like I was in a fog. Like if you guys didn't say to take the day off, I feel like I would have stared at the wall. Like I really don't know. I felt like I mentally couldn't do anything. Like I had no appetite. I went to Barnes and Noble, and that was about the only joy I had that day. Everyone was sending me like super sweet messages and texts, and like I had so many gifts show up, and they were all so sweet. So I was trying to be present with like thanking people and stuff, but I feel like it was a weird, like, I felt like I was like mourning a death of something. It was really weird. I don't know. Um, but anyways, I was incredibly humbled with people's kindness. And I said this on Instagram, but just like people's like willingness to like want to link arms with me and being like, stay strong, you're gonna be okay. Like we're in this with you. And like honestly, close to 1,000 people saying, like, I'm praying for you, which is insane. Um, so the silver lining of it all is just I feel like in all the hardships with Royal and Reese, it's been like friends aside, I think I have the best friends and the best family. Like when something happens, like I have like 3 different friend groups, and all 3, I feel like just like come out to rally around you. And there's this one friend group specifically that it's a lot of Phil's music friends and their wives, the ones I'm going to John Mayer with this Friday. That's my good. I'm going to John Mayer on Friday. Um, but that friend group, like I see and talk to at least maybe once a month, but they're all kind of different pockets of people. But like half of the flowers came from this group of friends. And I got a bouquet when Britt Moses was over, and she was like, that group of friends is so great. Like they are so sweet to you and Phil. And I was like, I know. It's like overwhelming, like how much we were loved on. And 2 of the couples that sent us flowers have actually gone through IVF or surrogacy. So like they were like my resources to ask all the like hard questions to. So they get it. But I had friends from California sending me stuff. My book club sent me stuff. Obviously, YouTube both sent me gifts. I had like a girl that I mentored in college who was like one of my students when she was in high school ministry, sent me a gift card to Starbucks. Like it was like wild. A random customer, I shouldn't say random, but a customer of ours sent me a $50 Venmo to go get my nails done and like do something for myself. Like it was just like overwhelming. But what I was going to say is all the hardships of Royal and Reese, like the thing that it has always been amazing to me is that like our customers really are like actual true community. And I feel like when you invest so much time and stuff, like it's surprising, I guess, to see it reciprocated back, because I feel like so much of community, especially when you're an influencer, is all like one-sided. Like I was saying this in our live earlier, like you see the influencer, you like purchase their links, like you're involved in their lives and they know nothing back. And we've always like wanted a goal of our business to be like, we know the people, we know their names, what to pray for, their families. And I feel like in a time when we've really needed them, there's like no hesitation on how they show up for us. And they've done the same thing with like Whitney's postpartum journey and like your weight loss journey, like the way that they were invested in all of those things with you. And then obviously with Taryn Breyer, like I just feel like it's been so amazing to watch, and like I'm very humbled by the kindness. Like hundreds of my messages were mainly from customers. So, and I don't even really like to call them customers because I feel like so many of them are friends. I just don't know a general way to categorize all of them. We call them loyal royals, but um so yeah, that was like the silver lining of it all, because everyone's encouragement was like what made me feel like I could get through the day, because it was just a really like ugly day. And it didn't help that Phil was out of town, so like that really was like an extra layer that just made it worse. But yeah, I had a lot of friends being like, what time should I come over? Like, should we go on a walk? Do you want me to send you tacos? Like everyone was like trying to make sure I wasn't alone, which was so sweet. And I feel like I was able to get through the weekend with the help of a lot of different people. So it makes me want to be in a season where I'm not dealing with something so I can do it for somebody else, even though I feel like I always have, but I'm like ready to be in a season to give and not receive, because I feel like I've received so much in the past year, especially. And like my personality is to want to give, so to receive is really hard for me. But yeah, I'm ready to be in a season where I can be back in like the driver's seat and being like, what time am I bringing you dinner? Like, not everyone dropping stuff off for me. So, anyways, it's been so sweet and really overwhelming. And like, yeah, I feel prepared. We have a doctor's appointment tomorrow where he's going to like essentially answer all the questions of like what we're kind of like struggling with and like what actually happened, and then essentially discussing next steps. Because my first thing I said to the nurse, I was like, is this over? She was like, it's not over, but you do have to start over if you want to go that route. And she was like, we also need to make sure that like based on what he's saying and the results, that there's nothing wrong with you. So that's my fear going in tomorrow, is that he's going to say there's something chromosomally wrong with us, which so many people were like, there's not. And my nurse even said, like, she was like, based on what I know from this, I don't see it. So she was like, just to like give you one piece of like good news. Um, but yeah, we meet with him tomorrow afternoon. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. But I think if he'll let me, I'll be able to start again right away. So yeah.
Well, I think we all echo like how you felt because you texted when I was actually at that event, and I just remember I'm standing there just like in shock, because I was like,
Yeah.
the information's got to be wrong. They like read the reports wrong. They're reading someone else's results. Like statistically, it didn't even make sense, because I was like, how how did they make it through the first round, and then when they got to the genetic testing, like why have they made it that far? And
Right.
like seven out of seven made no sense. Like it just, every part of it was like super confusing, and it was like, this isn't adding up. Like something's got to be wrong with it. But do you want to,
Yeah.
why don't you talk about the bouquets?
Oh, yeah. Well, one thing I was going to add to what you were saying is there is one embryo that came back inconclusive. I don't know if did I tell you guys that?
Uh-uh.
There's one that like they can't find like genetic DNA. So they think that they could retest it. But what's weird about this is that I had called the lab when it was, so I messaged them and said like, what's the actual turnaround time? Because like doctors are always like 4 to 6 weeks, and it's literally like a week and a half. So I have an email of someone at the genetics lab, and because I'd been working with them for the probe for like 6 months for the Pompe disease. And so she emailed me back and she's like, hey, the good news is they always quote you higher, but it's only 10 to 12 business days. And today, the day I'd emailed her was the 10th business day. So by the next Monday or Tuesday, they should have been done. Well, then I didn't hear anything. And I emailed my nurse on Tuesday and she's like, yeah, I haven't heard results. I know this is really hard to wait, but like, whatever. So then she got back to me. I emailed the lab again, like a week later. Cause I was like, I don't want to be like annoying, but I also like, I had a friend tell me like, if you don't advocate for yourself, nobody will, because they are dealing with so many different patients and things can slip through the cracks. And that's what happened with our original genetic tests, is that I ordered them wrong because they didn't tell me how to order them and they canceled my order and never followed up with me. So we wasted 5 weeks for no reason, essentially because of that. So I just have always been like, squeaky wheel. What is it? Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, I know it's annoying to constantly be like, are you done yet? But essentially she was like, sorry, Kate, just so you know, like we're rerunning the embryos. And I was like, that's weird. And then, but in the email, she said, but don't stress, like this is very normal for us to rerun them. But I don't know if I should have, because she told me not to stress, I didn't, but I guess I should have realized that something was wrong when they were retesting. So anyways, long story short, we ended up obviously finding out that we have to start over. And I was just trying to figure out how to gear myself up for it. So my friend Sky called me. Well, I texted a couple of my friends, and my friend Kaylee was chatting with me back and forth, and she was on the road with her husband. And she was like, if I were there, I would be on your couch with cookie dough and ice cream. Like cookie dough is like Kaylee's thing. And so she called Sky before I had even texted Sky yet and was like, what's going on with our girl? Like, we need to get like, she's like, can you go get cookie dough and sit on Kate's couch for me tonight? And so I guess the two of them did like a prayer session over me. And then Sky had her keys in hand and was like, I'm going to go to Kate's house like tonight. Well, she called me instead and was like, I just got off the phone with Kaylee. She told me what was going on. And she's like, do you want me to come over? And I was like, well, my mom's about to leave and I need to call my in-laws. Cause my mother-in-law was calling me. So anyways, me and Sky talked on the phone for a while, and she just had like really righteous anger over the situation. And she was just like, this really frustrates me. Like, I don't understand like why you guys have been walking through so much. And she was like, I want to like pray like a prayer like this ends today, like with the Lord. Like, and Sky is like super prophetic, has always been really prophetic, especially with me. She's actually mentored by our mom. And they've always been super close. And so she was like, I'm going to pray tonight. And then when I get off, like, well, not off the phone with God, but when I'm done praying, like if I get anything for you, I'll tell you. Well, what's been so funny is like, I talked about this in my stories this morning, but like there was a good season of my life where like I let people like Sky send me words or pray on behalf of me. And like, I didn't really like advocate for myself because I felt tired. And I was like, I don't even know what to pray. And I just kind of decided to be like numb to the whole thing. Because every time I prayed and felt like I was praying in authority, worse things started happening. So you get to the point where you're kind of like, I don't know what to do. So she used to send me words like constantly. And she said that the words had run dry in the past 6 months, which is funny because that's when I started feeling like I heard God's voice like the loudest. And she said, like, God told me that the words have dried up because he's giving them to you directly. So that night she was like, I don't even care. I'm praying for a word or a dream or a vision. And Kaylee was praying that I would have a dream. What's hilarious is I had a dream that Russell gave me a word at church. And then I woke up to a text from her that was like, you need to go to church today. If you're not planning on it, come sit with us because it's for you. And I told Russ that, and he was like, I'm going to go home and think about what my words are for you, because he's like, clearly I got something to say. And I was like, no pressure. So funny. So anyways, they're all like praying over this word. And long story short, Sky got a vision right before she went to bed because she kept praying until 2 a.m. She was like, this is bothering me. It's like keeping me up. I cannot handle this. And she was like, "What's going on, God?" And he said, "I love her more than you do. Go to bed." And she was like, "Okay, fine." And she said, right as she was falling asleep, she got this vision of like a garden and this like field of flowers. And it was like fully full and full of flowers, and they were all blooming. And he said, "Tell Kate that her garden's going to bloom." And I thought that was so crazy because the next day I had gotten so many flowers. And Sky had said, she was like, "I went to bed thinking I'm going to text all of our friends in the morning, ask them to Venmo me each $10, and I'm going to bring over like 10 bouquets of flowers." And she was like, "I wanted to like share this word with you and say like your garden's going to bloom and like here's all the flowers that signify it." Well, I started getting flowers that next morning at 9 a.m. all the way until 10:15, which side note, my doorbell rang at 10:15 and I told Tara I thought someone was there to kill me. I was like having this panic moment. And I was like, "Do you know that new scam where people like ring the front doorbell and then someone's at your back door and they're trying to break in and like they're trying to distract you at the front door and then someone's at your back door?" And Tara's like, "I really don't think that's what's happening, but maybe you can go upstairs and look out your window." See if
I
there's
was like, do they have a car outside? Is it a delivery person? Like maybe you could do a little bit more investigation.
but like who rings the doorbell at 10:15 p.m.? Like that's so weird. So, anyways, it was just more flowers from my friend Rachel. So when I opened the door for dinner, Sky was like, I said, "Welcome to my flower shop." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "I got all these flowers. Like, it's like the coolest thing ever." And I was like, "My doorbell has been ringing all day with like flower deliveries and crumble and like all these like sweet gifts." And she was like, "You're kidding." And then she told me the story about Bloom. And she was one of the people that brought flowers. So after I got that last bouquet at 10:15, I was texting Kaylee and sent her that voice text. And I wanted to tell all the people that brought me flowers that they were like part of this like super sweet word that confirmed this thing. And so I'm texting Kaylee and Sky and I was like, "You guys, my heart's like beating so fast." And they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go count how many bouquets there are." And so I go count and there was 7, which we lost 7 embryos and 7 bouquets were sent to us. And both of them were like, "This is not real. This is not happening." They're like shooting me all these texts back. And I was like total full body chills, like just so crazy that God had like given me the exact number and prompted all these people to send them to me. Cause I've gotten like 1 bouquet of flowers before, but I've never had 7 different people send them to me or 7 couples send them to me. Um, and I just feel like it was like God's way of like bringing new life into the situation and being like, it's not over because the flowers aren't dead. The people are bringing like something that signifies like fresh, you know what I mean? Like spring and starting over. But it also kind of signifies like grieving and, the death of something, which I feel like we had to go through. But I'll end with this because I know I've been talking for a while. My friend Lucy, that you guys both know, she had said when I was talking on my stories today, I was saying like my main like thing about this journey that I've learned is that I've done 2 things in my journey. I've like numbed out and decided I wasn't going to be close to Jesus, and I've clung to Jesus. And I was like, this side is way better, like the alternative is like being miserable and anxiety filled and depressed all the time and feeling like there's no hope. And you just sit in this like discomfort of your situation versus like letting God take control and surrendering the situation and having hope for your future. And I was saying, I think that there's a lot of power in desperation. And Lucy sent me this voice text. By the way, she's bringing me fresh bread. She just texted me for my address. Hang on.
I like am addicted to her stories of when she shows like how she makes her sourdough. It looks incredible.
I should share her Instagram name in case you guys want to get some sourdough inspiration. It's Lucy Ream?
Yeah.
It's me, Lucy Ream, and Ream is spelled Ream. She's really into sourdough right now, and she's dropping off some bread to me right now. Anyways, but she voice texted me this morning and she's like, "I just listened to your stories and I'm like so moved because I feel like God has a way of like connecting the dots and things." And she's like, "You use this word that I've been like seeing so much. She's like, I'm currently studying the New Testament. And she's like, you use this word called that about desperation. Like there's power in desperation. She's like, if you study the life of Christ, like so many of his miracles were people that were like desperate for change. Like the woman who just had to touch his cloak, to get healed, and there was power just in his garment, or like the man who couldn't walk and they lowered him through the roof of like the building that he was preaching in just so that he could have a miracle performed. Or you know what I mean, like everyone that has come to Jesus has been like, or the woman that washed Jesus' feet was like, this is my last dollar and I spent it on oil to wash your feet because I just wanted to have this encounter with the Lord. And she was saying like how beautiful the picture it is and how much God honors desperation, and like how people are looking for a change through circumstances because their life is at a point where they're almost like at a turning point. And I think that, like, I said this over the weekend, but I told Tara, I was like, I feel like the thing that I was always so inspired by you is like, of course you grieved Briar, the loss of Briar, but like the very first thing that you said was like, which way are you going to choose? Like, are you going to choose to lean into like, this stinks and I'm going to turn my back on God? Or are you automatically going to be like, no, like God said it's going to be okay and I'm going to lean into my faith? And you were like, obviously, I'm going to pick Jesus. And that was like one of the first things I thought of when all of this happened on Thursday, because I was like, I feel like if I was going through the same situation, I don't know if I would have been that quick to being like, no, God's still good. And you were. And I don't even think it had been like an hour since that had happened that you were texting us that. So anyways, I think that it's been a really cool, tangible picture of how God is in the midst of it. And I think through our business and through this hardship with my infertility, but all of our families, like things that we've gone through, God's been so present in like what he's sharing with us. I think like we always have said, like the hardest part of life is like the why, or the time of why or when. I think like the two main questions. And I remember our old health coach Renee said the whys of life are like the enemy's most like powerful tool to steal your joy, because of course like that's the why, and the explanation is going to be something we probably won't understand this side of eternity in a lot of ways. And so it makes people turn from God because they're like, he must be cruel and he must be unjust. If he let this happen to me, God, why would you do this to me? And when in reality, it's not really God that's doing it. So anyways, I just feel like I preached a sermon for like the last 20 minutes. I'm tired.
I mean, I think it's true. Like the reality of it is that anything that bad happens in life, are you going to just be like, well, I'm just going to toss everything that I know to be true and everything I've learned since I was a little kid out the window because like something bad happened in my life, and it's, the Christian walk is never promised to be fair and or easy. And so I just felt like I didn't really have two options. There was really only one, because you're not going, the alternative was like, okay, so I'm going to turn my back on God and blaspheme his name and just be like, nope, you're terrible. You did this to me. You allowed me to lose a baby. And so for the rest of time, the rest of my grown life, I'm going to just deny everything I've ever been taught and know and say like, you are not good. Mm-hmm. And I knew from the depths of my soul that that was not the truth. And so it was like, as hard as that is to understand, because we still don't know the why. There was nothing wrong with her. There was nothing chromosomally wrong with her. There was no reason, when you have to walk away with the fact that like, it's just a fluke and accept that and be okay with that. That's a hard pill to swallow. And so we still don't have the why, and it's 4 years later, And so I think that kind of stuff is what's tough. But the reality of it is that, like they were talking about yesterday in the service, that in the midst of your valleys, in the midst of you think that you're in this storm, and that God's looking in from the outside. And the reality is that he's in the storm with you. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the biggest truth of it all, is that, like you said, God gave you this picture of him sitting next to you on the couch and crying with you because he's grieving as well.
Mhm.
And so he's never left you. He's never forsaken you. But there are going to be hard times. And those
Mhm.
are unfortunate things about life,
Mhm.
And so, but yeah, I guess in my mind, there was never really two options. There was only one.
Mhm.
It's
One,
just, you don't, to get through it, you have to, what did Kelsey say? In order to get to the other side, you just have to get through it.
you have to go through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Only way is through. And
Only way.
I totally agree with that. And one thing I've thought of that too is like, if the other option is like turning your back or doing your own thing, whatever that means, like finding your own identity without Christ, I feel like the first root that you've allowed is bitterness into your heart. And there's nothing quite like what bitterness can do to a person. I was going to say, there's no other thing I feel like that can quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Like create a wedge or start to just eat away at your heart, because bitterness starts to create like a spirit of offense. And I think having a spirit of offense is like one of the most dangerous things that our culture has like grasped onto. Um, you can pretty much find a reason to be offended for pretty much anything these days. And I know that's probably a hot take, but instead of lending people grace and forgiveness and essentially like allowing people to be human, we are offended by everything and everyone is canceled and there's like a throwaway of people instead of finding a way to redeem people. And I'm not excusing certain people's bad behavior, but I feel like that's the root, is that bitterness starts and then it can manifest itself into so many different things. I just think it's a really dangerous game to play. What are you going to say? What?
I was just gonna say, I feel like the opposite of the spirit of offense is a spirit of like understanding
Mm-hmm.
and resolution. And so
Totally.
I feel like, yeah, in your darkest moments, you're grieving.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got a lot of anger and you're wanting to know the why. And when you don't get it, like that can start breeding bitterness. But if
Mm-hmm.
you sit in that,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even like in my experience, if I
Mm-hmm.
tend to avoid things because I don't want to sit in it
Mm-hmm.
and instead do other things to distract. If you're not taking care of that or taking it to God and just asking for the why, or sitting down with him and like just grieving with him, he's like, you can be angry and grieve and be sad and disappointed and be desperate and be in full despair with God. Like he's human, or he was human, so he understands the emotions and he
Yeah.
allows that. And even mom was saying how it allows for intimacy with him because
Mm-hmm.
he will give answers. It may not be ones that you're searching for, but he shows his nature, and his
Mm-hmm.
nature is love, and he does everything out of love. Hold on. When I literally, you can um like count on me to cry whenever I talk about God. Um, but yeah, I feel like the nature of God is what gets questioned first and foremost. It's like you
I
automatically assume that, like, if you're uncomfortable or you see the situation as cruel, you think God is cruel. And instead, what God always does, always, and this is something I do have to remind myself if I'm going through something, is what the devil uses for evil, God uses for our good and for his glory. Always. He's a restorer. He is a savior. Like that's who he is. And I feel like that's the number one thing people get confused about because they need somebody to blame because they're angry. And if you just sit in that, it does nobody any good. Like you literally are just sitting from a very negative, angry spot and hurt people hurt people. So you'll end up causing this generational cycle. So you'll not be the best person for your kids. You won't be the best person showing up for work or whatever. And you might start being the person that starts taking a spirit of offense. It does nothing for you to sit in that anger or to not try to work through it, is what I'm trying to say.
One thing I think too is when people find a spirit of offense, because if they're like wanting to disconnect from God, they still want community. Like what you would have maybe have connected on God with, you would find other people to connect with. And that's not always a bad thing. I don't mean that, but I was going to say, like, I think that sometimes where that like mob mentality happens on the internet, where everyone's angry about a specific issue, and then it becomes even bigger because everyone kind of like gangs up on it together. And I always think when I see that happening, even that TikTok thing I sent you guys the other day, where yesterday with that influencer, where I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. These people don't even know these two girls, and they're saying horrible things about both of them. Like you said, hurt people. So they're like looking for a way to fit in. And then sometimes I think it can spread into a lot more ugliness than it needed to. And I guess like my approach and what I feel like I've learned is, I mean, I know that that's like cancel culture is like a whole other topic of conversation. That's like 4 podcasts worth of conversation. But I would much rather judge someone by their judge someone by their best day than like forever hold them by their worst. And I think that like we're never going to grow as a body of people or body of Christ if we are constantly like hanging people by the neck or grabbing them by the neck by something they did wrong once, and that there's no redemption or forgiveness for something that they said that's wrong. And I know that again, that's probably a hot take, because I feel like that's not the way our culture works, but I would just much rather, like, I would never want anyone to see my darkest days and then defy me by that forever. So I've just always felt like, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine.
I keep getting this Instagram ad, and it's for a t-shirt, but the phrase on it is so cool that I keep reminding myself of it. It says, you can't throw stones if you're too busy washing feet. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is such a good phrase. And I feel like so many people need to remember that, because if you're a person that finds yourself throwing stones, what are you doing to help other people? You're not. You're just literally the mob, like the mob calling to hang someone, the lynch mob.
I guess what I'm saying is, at the core of it, like, community is so important, but like taking things to the Lord is most important. And I think if we were all in the right mindset, a lot of the like discourse in our generation wouldn't be happening, because if we were all, I think we could still disagree on things, but I feel like a lot of it is probably because there's a lack of unity, you know what I mean? And loving people the right way. And it's just, online culture is really brutal, which is why I feel like I've tried to, all 3 of us girls have tried so hard to create a community that doesn't have that, like a safe place that like truly focuses on like getting to know someone, like you said, beyond all of those things that you just mentioned, and truly loving each other in spite of all of the above. And so, yeah, anyways, I'm grateful for a conversation. I feel like that is kind of like a hot button, but I think it's good for people to think about, you know what I mean, and talk about. So that's the update. And now a little word from our kids. And on a lighthearted note. Okay, if you guys are listening to this still at the very end of this episode, we just did a quick little like couple-minute interview with one of each of Tara and Whit's kids, Brecken, Riv, and their answers are really cute and fun. We might have to have our podcast manager splice up all the time that they were like, yes. But it's really cute and lighthearted, and we wanted to just do something fun, since a lot of our conversations have been longer lately. All right, guys, we're starting the interview portion of our podcast, and we have the most special guest. So what is your name?
Rivers.
Rivers. Okay. And who are you? You're Whitney's son, right?
Yeah.
He said, who am I?
It's hard-hitting questions right off the bat.
I know, that is kind of a deep question. I didn't mean it to be. I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna ask you a bunch of silly questions and maybe some funny, like some serious ones too. But you can just tell us the first thing that comes to mind. Okay. All right. What is one thing that your mom always says?
Um, hmm. Stop.
Stop.
I love it.
That's so good. I'm dead. Okay. If you could change your name to anything, what would it be?
I will not change my name.
You don't
No.
want to change your name?
Yeah.
Do you like your name?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, if you could stay up all night long, what would you do?
Hmm.
I love how he says because he does it just like Isaac.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Probably eat and mainly I would just probably sleep, maybe.
Sleep. You would sleep if you could stay
Sleep.
up.
You
So
wouldn't
basically,
answer.
what you're saying is you don't want to stay up all night.
Mm,
Like, would you just rather sleep?
yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That
Um,
sounds good.
You are interviewing my child, you realize.
He's like, what about staying up all night seems appealing? I think I'd just rather sleep. Okay, what's something your dad always says?
Um, uh, I can't think of anything.
Doesn't he always tell you to sit down?
Oh yeah. Sit
Yeah,
down, yeah.
because you're being
Daddy's
really rowdy.
Daddy's probably one that says stop and sit down. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Daddy says that a lot.
If you wanted to make everyone in your family laugh, what would you do?
Dance. Yeah. And
Dance.
make sounds.
Dance and what?
Make sounds.
Make sounds.
Makes sense.
What kind of
sounds like some
you want to show us? So fart sound.
noises.
Yes.
Okay. If you would be granted 3 wishes, what would you like them to be? Like, what's something that you really want that you feel like you can't have?
A phone.
A phone. Okay. What else?
Apple Watch.
Okay.
What else?
TV in my bedroom.
Wow. Those are good wishes. What do you want to be for Halloween this year?
I have no clue. Maybe,
No clue.
yeah, no clue.
What about being Mahomes?
Yeah.
Did you go as Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is the grossest thing you've ever seen?
Let me see.
You can say whatever you want.
Poop.
Like
No.
your poop, Ever's poop,
No,
whose
no.
poop?
Actually, puke.
Puke.
No.
Yeah, good answer. Okay. If you could create one rule for everybody on the earth to follow, what would you tell them to do?
Wear a Chief jersey.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay. All right, one more. If you could bury a treasure chest, what would you put in it?
Probably money and
Money. Yeah.
and yeah, and gold. Yeah.
Gold. Those are good answers. Wow, Rev, you're smart. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Okay.
Good job, bud.
Okay.
Thank you for being on.
Bye.
You crushed it. What's one thing your mom always says? Stop.
I mean, that is accurate.
All right, you guys, we have our second special guest. Brecken is here next to answer some of the same questions that Riv got to answer. So we'll see how she comes up with her answers. But Brecken, do you want to introduce yourself? Like your name, what grade you're in, maybe what's your favorite thing to do?
My name's Brecken. I'm in 2nd grade, and my favorite thing to do is probably gymnastics.
Gymnastics. Okay, great. Okay, the first question is, what is something your mom says all the time?
Love you.
That's nice. What's something your dad always says?
Don't know.
Does he always ask you why something's in the kitchen?
Oh yeah.
No, what's something he tells you guys?
I don't really know.
To brush your teeth?
Oh yeah. Oh, all the time.
See,
Do
that's
you
why
brush your
Nashville. That's why Nashville didn't happen because Brian wasn't around to tell him to do it.
do you forget to brush your teeth if your dad doesn't tell you to?
Sometimes.
Yeah. It's hard to remember. Sometimes I don't either. Okay. What is one thing you would do if you could stay up all night?
What would I do?
Yeah.
Probably do arts and crafts.
Yeah. Just do art all night long.
Hmm.
Cool. Okay. If you could change your name to anything, what would you change your name to or why? And why? Sorry.
Brooklyn, and because I just like it.
You like that name? Hey, it still works within the family theme.
The VR.
That's actually really shocking. Okay, if you want to do something to make everyone in your family laugh, what do you do?
You know?
You do fake farts all the time.
Oh yeah.
Fake farts. Okay, if you can tell us what is the most annoying sound in the world?
Probably when Rivers goes.
Okay, what is the grossest thing? Sorry. What is the grossest thing you've ever seen?
Well, Andy just sent me a picture of when Rivers took a picture of him at night when his snot was going down his face.
Oh no. So snot on Rib's face. Wow, that's nice of Indy to send that in the group chat. Okay, if you had an extra room in your house, what would you use it for?
Probably change it to like another playroom or like a classroom just for me or
Mhm.
something.
We'd make sure that all the other kids couldn't get in,
Yeah.
especially
So-
Briggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What are you going to be for Halloween this year?
I kind of want to be a nurse or like an artist.
Oh, that's fun. How would you dress up like an artist?
Like probably have like a paint stir or like a paintbrush or some like those little things that you put paint on.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
An
So,
eating.
yeah, paint palette.
You know, Whitney's an artist, so all you have to do is wear leggings and a sweatshirt and you're there. You just dress like her.
Shots fired.
Okay. Okay. Let me see what I have left here. What's your favorite memory with your sisters?
Probably when this really funny thing happened on the stairs with me, Bradley, and Brecken. That was probably one of the best memories.
What
On the
happened?
stairs?
So I was actually videoing it. Briley threw the bouncy ball down the big red bouncy ball down the stairs, and Brit was at the very bottom with a grocery cart thing, and it rolled down and smacked her in the face, and then she fell into the grocery cart.
It hit Britton or Briley?
It hit Britain. It hit her, and then she landed into the grocery cart.
Do you have the video of it?
Yeah, but I'm not sure. I might have deleted it. I'm not sure.
Oh,
But-
shoot.
I might still have it, but it would be hard to find.
We'll have to take your word for it. Okay, we'll ask you one more question. Who is your favorite aunt? I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that.
Watch her say Carly.
Yeah, she's like, oh, whichever one's not on this video. Okay, well, thank you, Brecken, for answering those questions. You did a great job. Okay, guys, we love y'all, and we will talk to you in the next one. Thanks for listening to Sisterhood Society podcast. If you like what you see, make sure to also subscribe on YouTube so you can see the video version of all of our podcasts, and make sure to give us a 5-star review on Apple, which really helps our podcast to get rated and show up in people's feeds for people that don't already know about the podcast. We love you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.